Looking to launch your cannabis business in Minnesota? The license application may be in, but the real work is just beginning, and you don't have to navigate it alone. Jen Riza and her team at North Star Cannabis Consulting offer expert guidance on the next steps in the licensing process and how to build a successful and compliant business. Start with their free industry newsletter, then get strategic support tailored to your goals. Get professional guidance from a team that knows Minnesota's cannabis landscape inside and out. Contact North Star Cannabis Consulting today at northstarcannabisconsulting.com.
Keeping track of your grow doesn't have to be a hassle. Meet Plant Track. That's PLNTRK, a tool built by Minnesota growers for growers like you. Track every stage of your plant with intuitive progress bars for each phase. Stay on top of your grow with text reminders for watering, feeding, and photos. And when it's time to log data, it couldn't be easier. Just scan a QR code or tap an NFC tag to instantly access your plant's details and updates. You can even log your interactions for one or all your plants in just seconds. Ask detailed questions with the AI chat powered by your plant's data and get the help that you need when you need it. It's free for up to 8 plants. Go to www.plntrk.com now and start tracking your grow. Are you a social equity applicant trying to save money on LED grow lights? Then here's some good news for you. You could get up to 75% off your lighting project, covered entirely by rebates, when you team up with a local nonprofit, Center for Energy and Environment. Since 2000, CEE has provided free energy consulting to Xcel Energy customers throughout Minnesota. Their team of lighting experts will help you get the highest rebates possible and take care of the paperwork so you don't have to. Starting a grow operation can be overwhelming, so take advantage of this free support from CEE. Go to mncee.org/GrowLED to sign up for your free consultation and find out how much you can save with lighting rebates. Again, that's mncee.org/GrowLED. Go get signed up today.
I have something I need to show you, because otherwise after I'll forget. And I don't think you'll ever get to seeing it if I don't show you. Tanner, you may know or remember my little brother Joey Wagner from AHS. I also worked with you.
How did you make that connection?
No, he DM'd.
Is Tanner's fame getting away from him?
Wow. This is the guy I went to high school with.
I also worked with your mom at LGA for a few years, right after you left IIRC. Anyway, I've been in the cannabis industry for about 15 years now. I'd love to chop it up with you sometime. I'm sure he'll get around to doing that. I'm a big fan of what you're doing with the pod. HMU, if down to catch a coffee or something sometime. Let's collab. Hope you are well, my man.
So, 15 years ago, I was in high school, and Joey's brother was driving me around in the back of their car, driving way, way too fast. And just being like, no, this is cool. It's fine. They don't pull me over here. And so the fact that they're in the cannabis industry, not surprising. I like that a lot. Wow. Shout out Joey. Yeah, I'd say hi to him if I saw him today. This isn't anything bad.
So did you get pulled over?
No, he was right. So those in Crystal, just watch out, I guess. I don't know.
Crystal's got an airport. Yeah,
It does. It does have an airport. Yeah.
As a drone pilot, that surprises me. I guess I've never.
So as a drone pilot, it's deeply concerning to me because anytime I want to go to my parents, I'm sort of within that window where the FAA is like, there might be planes in the air, so don't drone over here. But I still do.
Pop quiz. Is that Class A, Class B, or Class D airspace?
So it's a small airport that only takes propeller planes. Yeah. So that would be a Class C airport.
Just kidding. I don't know anything.
Yeah,
Why
no,
do you guys
this is
trust
great.
me?
This is great.
Why do
I
you
don't
trust
either, so
me?
this is good. This is good. Because you're the producer. We'll always trust you.
But the thing is I've taken the drone pilot test 3 times.
Okay.
Because you have to take it every 3 years that you have a license.
Okay.
I don't know the difference between the airspaces.
And here's what I think is funny is,
But I've passed the test 3 times.
you do it for like work, so you have to get the drone license.
Commercially, yeah.
I do it to like buzz around and think like, that's sort of cool.
Neat.
It's just below the weight of where you need to register it.
Oh, the weight is 55 pounds. You could get up to 55 pounds and not have to.
Mine is like grams.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
But they're involving like commercial shoots, like where camera rigs. I've been on commercial shoots where the thing flying above my head is like $400,000.
Okay.
Where
So
it's like the drone is 10 feet wide. It's got 10 propellers. It's made of carbon fiber.
I don't want
and
to talk
that's
about
the
this
cheapest. Yeah, I nerded out.
all right, one last thing I'm going to throw in and then we can move on. Can we have an event that's just a bunch of people getting stoned together and then flying drones competitively in an airspace? Sort of like dog fighting like on Battlefront, but
Battle bots,
Real, right.
but battle drones.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you accept like my drone will probably break by the end of this. So I'm just going to use like the cheap one.
Wow.
Don't tell the FAA.
I do dabs. All right.
Yeah.
All right. We can leave that there. But
Drones and dabs.
hello. Welcome to another episode of Northern Lights. I'm your host Tanner, joined today by Steve and Jordan. Hey there, guys. How's
What's
it
up,
going?
dude? Good to see you guys.
Happy to be back here.
Steve, been a minute since we seen you.
Happy May
Yeah.
2025.
2025, 2 years of legal cannabis in Minnesota.
You know, I was listening to the Friday Politics NPR podcast.
Yeah, totally.
Which was clipped or
Friend of the fan, Eric Tobble.
shouted out in the Nuggets newsletter this morning that I was reading, and they pulled the. You must have heard it. I don't know. Maybe you did. They pulled the clip from Representative Zach Stevenson around 2 years ago when he was asked about the rollout. How long is it going to take? And he goes, "I think it'll be months, not years." And then I was talking to Colin. Great interview today with Colin Kelley on the show, and he's like, "Well, technically, 72 months, or like."
Yeah, we're getting to the point where like the parents who don't want to like call their kids like 3 years old. It's like, it's only 36 months. Like,
How
yeah,
old-
that's 3.
Just divide it by 12.
3, yeah.
Dad.
Yeah. You're not doing that though. No.
No, I don't even know how old Gwen is. No, I'm just kidding.
0.5 year.
That's right. She's doing well though. She's doing well.
Touching
So-
trees.
Touching trees, Ted's trees, Steve's trees. Yeah, no, things are good. Wedding's coming up in a couple weeks.
That was exciting.
Yeah. Any advice for me as a fellow married man
Oh,
on the day of specifically?
yeah. Take a lot of moments to sort of be the witness of your wedding. I like to sort of be like outside of a window for a minute and look in and watch the people at my wedding having fun and not be there. And the other one is if you are going to sneak out to do dabs,
Yes.
make sure there's not an alarm on the door that automatically notifies the Matamini police to show up to the church that you're getting married at. Not that that happened if my family is listening to this
No.
podcast, but if it were to, make sure to not do that. But no, the taking pictures.
I'm sure the University of Minnesota, the Landscape Arboretum, I'm sure they're very.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'd love for me to do some dabs on.
Real chill. Yeah. But just make sure to be not just the
That's a good
person up front, but sometimes the person in back.
I like that.
The day is for her.
Yes.
Like it's for you.
That's why I've let her organize the whole thing.
Let her.
That hits
nice,
real close to home in my head.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the day is really for honestly everybody other than the two of you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do check-ins. Just whether it's like a little rub on the leg during dinner or like just check in
With her.
with her. Yeah,
Yes.
no. With the photographer, Steve. Yeah. No, with her, check in, just be like, this is a fun day. And remind her
Yes.
to remember.
Oh, and one more I'd love to throw in just to add on top of
Go
that.
for it. Sandwich.
Always be okay asking people to do things for you. Like I felt
Oh my
so
God,
uncomfortable in
yeah.
the morning asking people like, oh man, I need this done. I'm going to go do that. Like, no, you have to be here.
Right.
Like, well, that needs to get done. And they're like, yeah, I'll go do it.
Yep.
Like, oh, okay. Cool. Yeah.
Delegate.
I like that.
Yep.
Yeah. That's why we're having the wedding in Delaware.
There we go. There we go.
On brand.
I like that a lot.
a bachelor party in New Mexico and wedding in Delaware. It's fantastic.
Very cool. That'll be fun.
Thank you.
You got some good summer plans. I dig that, man. I dig it a lot.
Might set up a corporation out there when I'm out there.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Just kidding, guys. We're here to talk about Minnesota.
Oh yeah. And we've got a lot of news this week. You guys might have heard the lottery might actually be happening.
The announcement came out this past week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Very excited to get that news broadcast sent out by OCM that we'll be digging into a little bit later. And that cannabis omnibus bill is on the verges of becoming law. The House made some changes. It's been sent to conference committee. We'll dig into the specifics of what they might be talking about. But first off, I mean, guys, how's your week been? We're getting close to summer. We're at 2 years of the bill has been signed. People are coming up with the ideas of legal cannabis being out there.
Yeah, I mean, not too much to report on. I feel like, we've talked about this a little bit off the mic, but like a limited amount of movement, but still, if you're working with the right people, there's some people trying to move right now, and you really have to level up. Like, I think right now is a lot about leveling up, looking within yourself. Okay, who's your team? What do you got? And what can you do to prepare yourself for when it's going to get busy? Kind of like a wedding.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as your license is approved, like, you've got a lot of stuff to get figured out. You're going to have to delegate.
Yeah, totally fair.
Jordan?
I think I've mentioned how I grew last summer.
Yeah, tree.
And I just kind of left it. I didn't do anything to it.
Mm-hmm.
I've tapped into it this week.
Ooh,
guys.
okay.
The taste, nailed it.
Wow.
The aroma, nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Nug density, some to be, desired.
It ain't easy.
It ain't easy. But like I had written that off 9 months ago as just like a little training experiment, and my week has been good because I tapped into the fruits of my own labor, and it turns out to be all right.
I love that.
Did you throw any Bovida packs on it? Or?
It was only exclusively saved because of Bovida packs. Bovida, what I will do is I will like pluck off whatever I need for the next day.
Okay.
Put it in the C vault. With the fresh Bovida pack.
Hell yeah.
I like to do like a 3, 4, 5 week rotation. They get crunchy. With my weed, with my dry ass weed,
Sure.
they get crunchy pretty quick. But it was a pleasant surprise.
Oh, that's so good.
Realize that something I actually had planned on not enjoying gets to be enjoyed. So,
dude, I feel like that's a major step forward in your headspace to not write off the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
I had felt like I had already gained the value from that thing. I was like, okay, I learned the lesson. I'm gonna move on, and then it still has something to give. So
I love it.
yeah, it was a fun little week of exploratory self-reflection.
I love that. Maybe motivating for people listening in, thinking, should I be growing outdoors this summer? Yeah,
I know nothing.
give it a go.
And I grew some half decent weed. It's nothing like overt sloth though.
Oh, David, the young David.
Well, they say half decent weed in the hand beats good weed on the bush or something. What's the
early weed gets the fox in the hen house.
There we go. Yeah. All right. It was a good week. I'm just so excited that finally we have some glimpse of a path forward. I feel as though we have been stuck in this, like, it's coming for years.
Mm-hmm.
And we are now moving forward where we have a date where a lottery of some type,
I think it's a weird word.
will take place. Lottery?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's jump into that. So for people that are maybe new to Minnesota cannabis, first off, welcome. People are trying to get some cannabis business licenses. Those people are applying in various categories. Cultivator, manufacturer, and meso businesses are all capped. And there's a lot more people looking for those licenses.
And meso
licensing
business is
says.
a mid-sized, vertically integrated
Exactly.
operation.
Growing, processing, selling. All of that for people who might not maybe this is your first time, but yeah, we are moving forward where that lottery is coming up on June 5th, and we're going to be seeing a live drawing happening in these 5 licensed categories, which I think is pretty exciting.
I wonder what time of day they'll do it.
Yeah, I also wonder that.
4:20.
That'd be so exciting if that's when the first ones were.
You know,
drawn.
let the OCM get like a good day's of amount of work done on a Thursday, and then be like, all right, guys, you know, we're going to shut down a little early.
I see. I would like that.
Teacher-wise, you know, we're going to put a movie on.
Yeah, right. We're done for the day, y'all. I think it would be exciting if we had people guess in the comments on when they think that lottery would actually take place. Like, when will the first person know, oh, I've got my golden ticket, at least in one of these areas?
Golden tickets.
Green tickets here.
Yeah.
But
So you're happy with that? I mean, I was a little surprised. I'm like, oh, that's good. Like it's no longer May.
I'm happy that we are moving forward.
Right.
I am so beyond disappointed that the application process has been known to us for now over 2 years. We are at a point where they're picking 3 categories that they're going to do drawings on, which is great.
Yeah.
They're going to do retail in July, which is great.
Sure.
Um,
And then they'll do some SEA retail in June.
mm-hmm.
Okay. So like Marcus, for example, he may be in that lottery process in June.
Absolutely. Could be getting that go ahead, not pre-approval, but actual licensure, ready to go forward and start that business. And so, yeah, we are seeing an opportunity for people that are in those cap categories on the social equity side to still get that head start. Not in cultivator, manufacturing, or mezzo, but yes, in retail, which logistically, if you think about it, we're going to need a ton of material in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Flower, dabs, whatever be it. And so allowing there to be more cultivators, manufacturer, and mezzo businesses instead of less, I think is probably better for the industry itself. I think there are probably social equity mezzo applicants who want a month head start, but we just need flower.
Yeah.
We just need stuff growing.
Right. No, it's true. The rules took a long time, and it's from the interview that I listened to today with NBR and interim director. Minnesota has like an arduous rules making process. Classic Minnesota.
Yeah, totally. I think it's been sort of like soul shaking for me over the past couple of months to watch this whole process roll out and to see the amount of effort and manpower and regulation going into ensuring that this plant is sold to people in this very specific and narrow way.
Yeah.
And I think it's been particularly challenging over the last couple of months as we see the rules continue to roll out, as we see, the big one that people are talking about recently is the testing requirements. We're going to have retention samples. So you're growing, you're processing, you're going to have stuff on site that if OCM shows up, they can say, hey, we want to test that and make sure it's good.
Okay.
There's going to have to be at least 30 grams from every single batch just kept in a fridge somewhere sitting for OCM to maybe some point show up. That's flour, but also concentrates.
Oh.
And so we're looking at, bulk price, $20 a gram. We're looking at, $600 sitting in a fridge for every single batch that a person makes, just so that the OCM can later come and say, yeah, I guess there wasn't something wrong with that. Or there was, and somehow full panel testing missed it.
Yeah. So what Tanner's really getting into here is the not just how it looks to the consumer, but how it's going to reflect on the businesses that are attempting to help stand up this industry.
Yeah, totally. I think of the people who applied for these licenses on the social equity side back in August of last year, June of last year, they were working on their application, not really knowing exactly what the rules look like. Obviously having an understanding of the framework.
Yeah.
But some of them are probably getting a license at this point and looking at this and going, how am I going to do this? Like, how am I going to be able to not only afford the startup cost of this, which I know a lot of people were talking about at the beginning, but also the logistical day-to-day of complying with all of these rules is going to just lead to such
breakdown.
Yeah.
Of opportunities fading due to regulation being overbearing.
And we're going to have consumers that are driving to Michigan and buying it for a fifth the cost because they are now. And
Hold on. Do you think they'll still tell people about it on Reddit?
I think every time, and I hate, fuck you, MN Trees community. No, don't put that in there. Yeah, put it in there.
Yeah,
But
I mean, we gave up. We
yeah,
gave up.
yeah.
MN
You don't
Trees
like us,
community.
it's okay. It doesn't matter. But I think what's challenging is there's so many people in that community and in our community generally that anytime there's a business that opens, people point to and say, yeah, but it's cheaper other places.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's challenging, especially in the early part of a market. People need to stand up their business. There needs to be all of that.
Yeah.
But I think there is a problem that people are identifying of 10 years down the line. I actually don't have confidence that Minnesota will be a cheaper program. I think that the framework that we're setting up might be helpful for business owners, perhaps.
Uh-huh.
But if we're looking at who is social equity really for, is having a couple small businesses that just make more money than another state because there's limited framework for them to operate in, is that equity? That's what I've been struggling with. So I'm really excited to see the lottery happen because it means that we're moving forward.
No doubt. I mean, the unfortunate part, and it's like because the price per gram is going to be higher, that means that 10% sales tax or that overall sales tax is going to be higher as well.
Yep.
And that's what eats at people, given that, it may look better to the state from a tax standpoint, but if there's less pieces of pie in the overall market, they're not going to get the same tax return, the tax incentives and whatever, not incentives, but the overall tax that they can collect for furthering Minnesota and the great initiatives that the bill set out to serve. Yeah, it's just...
And we've had 2 years of people setting up their own legacy markets very out in the open.
Yeah.
That's not going anywhere. You can look at other states, and even after the best attempts, I mean, there still is a legacy market in Colorado. It's obviously not as large as it was 12 years ago.
Sure.
But that still exists. And for people that want to live in that market, there is not enough regulation in the world. I mean, people were literally facing life in prison over illegally purchasing this product, and they continue to do it. And they think that a slap on the wrist and a fine is going to really stop people from engaging in what I think is more than just it's not just an act of a crime, it's a lifestyle.
The annoying part about the OCM at the high level, at the level of the names that we actually know, is it doesn't look like, it doesn't feel like they care about that, the fact that what they're doing is going to encourage legacy market. It looks like they're just trying to quote unquote do their job and check the box and set it up. And they're not looking holistically at the reality that consumers have been buying cannabis illegally in Minnesota for years and years and years and years and years. And what they're putting in place isn't going to necessarily stop that.
Yeah. We knew what this roadmap looked like 2 years ago. And somehow we have missed every single mark. We're going to have a lottery and we still don't have a director. Like, I hate to be that guy that just like keeps throwing that up at every conversation, but the state has failed this industry. And so I started positively, went negatively.
I wouldn't let you get out of it.
But,
I had
to end positively, I really do believe that this is moving us forward. We will have people with licenses within a month of us recording right now. Like, people will have a license in their hand saying, I'm ready to go. What will be there on the other side?
Hemp.
Yes, there will. Yes, there will. Now, an exciting part is for people that are in the uncapped categories. You don't really have to wait until June 5th for those to see beginning to roll out. OCM updated their numbers on May 1st. We've not really seen an update since, but hopefully at some point. That shows that at least 200 people who applied on the micro business side have gotten some word that they've gotten pre-approval. We're seeing those steps move forward. We could see stores open at some point.
So even the folks that got their application in by, I don't know, March 14th or March 18th, up to 200 people have been pre-approved on the micro side for that?
Sort of. 200 people from the pre-approval social equity micro side. So these are people that applied back in May or back in August.
Yeah, 2024.
Yeah. And maybe some corrected their application. Maybe some were good to go from that pre-approval round, but they haven't even begun touching the general applications. So this is all just people who have applied and sort of stuck with it for the 8 months.
Wow.
Some of them are finally hearing, you're good to go. Which is exciting. That's something. I'm excited to see micro businesses begin to get that inspection, and hopefully us to have adult use plants in stores, in ground, in whatever soon here. We need some cultivation.
If you're a micro business applicant who is approved and wants to document your plant's journey, like reach out. We'd love to see. I'm speaking on behalf of the entire show, but like I'd love to see the plant as soon as it can get in the ground, live streamed, to understand like how close we are to plants reaching full term and being able to be extracted. Because ultimately we're not going to have, and that's caveat with tribal and medical, but like we're not going to have the vertically integrated plants, micro license plants. Like,
well, I like that a lot.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Shout out to the Edmund Trees community. I remember the posts that were coming about right around like that 3 or 4 month mark after legalization of people saying, I put the seed in soil on the first day of legal cannabis.
Yeah.
And now it's harvested. This is how long it took. And yeah, I would love to see almost like one of those like thermometers for fundraisers. But like, I just want to watch that weed plant grow and know that when it gets chopped down,
we're coming.
there's stuff all throughout Minnesota that was grown here. I think that'd be real cool.
Yeah, it'd be cool. I don't know. Reach out if you want to collab. If you want to, if you're micro, we'd love to talk.
Mm-hmm. And in the legacy side, we'd love to talk too.
Mm-hmm. Which is why every
Just
Friday we have Tanner's Terp tasting.
Yes, we do. I wonder if that will ever become the non-legacy side. Like, I think that's one of those things that like once it becomes a place where you can legally buy dabs, we should out of principle just shut it down. We're done now. No. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I'm excited for that legal market.
It's going to be nice. I think how TTT evolves is like you're able to bring the producer on them to the show. You kind of touched on it in the last one, where for now it's like, the jars show up. We don't know how they got here.
Yep. But yeah, that one with Casey where he was able to come in, sort of show off, this is what I grew at home. I'm excited for people to say, this is what we grew at work.
Very cool.
All right, y'all. Well, so more to come on the licensure side, as we've been saying for weeks, but I'm excited to see in just a couple weeks. Hopefully there'll be some more news.
How much do you think the industry is going to change once the cannabis omnibus bill gets passed?
It's a really good question. I think sort of like the omnibus bill last year, where it was a pivot of things, but not a wholesale changing. I think this will be similar.
Mm-hmm.
There's a number of things that I think correct or recenter parts of the industry in different directions that are probably bringing it closer in line with both federal legalization and legalization of adult use in Minnesota.
Sure.
So,
it's good. It's good.
Not all of it was bad.
Okay. Yeah.
One big change that I'm excited about that I just think is so funny is beverages are now going to be allowed to have 10 milligrams of THC per serving, but only one serving per can. So, guys, we're going to finally be able to have canned beverages with 10 milligrams of THC in each can. Isn't that cool?
Wow.
Yeah. I know. I'm pretty excited.
I wonder what...
Pretty big change. Let's talk about some other changes. All right, here's another one. Low potency hemp wholesalers. So people who currently import products like alcohol or tobacco or things like that could also apply for a license that allows them to just import low potency products as well. Wow. So the industry is going to be sort of just like just like how it is. Oh, but wait, here's another one. Med patients. If you're a med patient in another state, you come here, you need cannabis. Well, now when you go to these dispensaries that are going to open in the future, you can buy as a med patient and not just as an adult. Wow, that's so cool. So
is that tax-free?
It will be 10% tax-free. Yep, that is. And you'll be able to buy products that are slightly above that percentage limit. So that's, exciting. But, man, we've had medical cannabis since 2014, and we finally have now expanded it to people that are outside of Minnesota. That's sort of cool or something, I guess.
That's the, what is that called when you get the reciprocity?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was part of a bigger move. Now, I don't mean to just like dismiss all of it. We're also integrating Minnesota's medical and adult use program closer with our tribal partners. So if you're in the tribal medical program, you can buy here, vice versa. I mean, it's.
But not every tribe has a tribal medical program.
No. And, for us to say this is going to be the bill that's just going to really change and reform and like fix our program, for it to be like this, like it truly shows the benefits of government by committee and split government, where you can only agree on the things that are just not at all disagreeable. And anything that would actually make any change or impact, you just don't have enough votes for. So we get this that just sort of, I think, is more of a status quo bill than anything.
Yep.
It says, yeah, we can have adult use, but then also the things from hemp, yeah, we're gonna have that too. Now, it did make one interesting thing, which is it created a endorsement that hemp businesses need to get if they want to make products for sale outside of the state of Minnesota. Okay. This is something added as an amendment during the House version, so it's sort of a last-minute addition. So let's say you're hemp company X, you're making edibles to be sold in Wisconsin at 25 milligrams each. Well, now you have to actually let the state know, hey, we're doing this. This is who we're selling them to. And it has to say, not for sale in Minnesota on the package, even if it's being sold in Wisconsin, which I think is sort of
hilarious,
sort of fun. Yeah, I'm excited for there to be products all around the country that say, this product may be illegal outside of Minnesota, or that say, not for sale in Minnesota. And you could find both products on the shelf in like Louisiana. It's the fun part of our hemp program going federal is...
My mom said I can't eat this.
Yeah. It's just it's asinine. I mean, I'm glad that we're coming up with clearer rules, I guess, or something.
It creates some transparency.
Yeah.
Greater, like through all of these things, creates some transparency. The joke, if you're new around here, like 2 times 5 and 1 times 10 is the same. You ultimately get to the same number, and nobody puts a seltzer halfway back in the can.
Absolutely.
And expects it to taste good.
Yep. We were talking to OCM not that long ago about packaging. You know, we've got these brand new rules that apply to both adult use, but also hemp products. When will those rules go into effect? The word from OCM is soon. Okay, so should we buy packaging that complies with these rules?
Not for sale in Minnesota.
Yeah. Well, we'd recommend it. Okay.
So we can still use all our old packaging for now?
For now. And there might be a grace period. Or this might be the grace period.
Right.
We don't really know. And I love that we're, we got licensure, as we were talking about at the beginning.
May, June.
But I just wish our regulators understood the rules that they created.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's really the bulk of the issue.
Yeah. I was explaining to someone from OCM, I don't want to name names, about I'm concerned that we have an international symbol that we have to be putting on our products, but that we need to be modifying that international symbol. And that the only place that we can get that international symbol is reaching out to the organization that specifically tells us, do not modify this symbol. And so we're going to have to follow this rule that specifically says in rules, you have to follow the rules of this organization, but then tell us to break those rules one sentence later. And the representative from OCM was like, yeah, like, I appreciate your feedback. Like, that's interesting. It's like, I don't want it to be interesting. I want you to be able to tell me, yeah, this will be a problem, or no, it won't, and here's why. And we are at the doorstep, and we are a bunch of kids in suits looking around at each other going, man, some adults should show up soon.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's not to, I mean, we could turn it into a harp session. It's just,
oh yeah,
it's definitely, the sentiment for a long time now has been like, Minnesota likes to do things differently. And it just continues to continue. It just continues to be true in so many different ways. And it's, but I mean, I guess I did hear today when I was listening to that NPR Politics podcast where they're like, interim director Tauble was saying, like, in some dispensary states, you have to show your ID like 3 times. We're sort of leaving that up to the shop to say how you check ID. So as we harp, there are going to be some aspects of the Minnesota cannabis industry that are less friction-filled.
Absolutely.
For the consumer. But generally speaking, they're making it really hard on small business owners. And that is problematic given the supply chain aspect, that if you make it hard on the business, you're slowing down the opportunity to serve the customer. Mm-hmm. And you're leaving advantage for the more developed or more well-funded folks to inherently have an advantage because they can put up with the rigmarole.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's tough.
But one thing that gives me hope in the world is consistency. And it is May, which means we have another cannabis conference committee. And I'm stoked about that. So conference committee, of course, for those who don't know, is when the House and the Senate, they send a couple members together to say, how can we agree and get this through before the final hours? Because we're coming close. May 19th is that final day of the session, that Monday. And so we're coming down to the final wire. If they want these changes to go through, what are we going to do with our 10 milligram cans? They need to pass that real soon.
Otherwise, Glenn McElfresh is going to have a conniption.
It's going to be real bad. It's going to be real bad. But
are we going to play another, should we call Kayla? Are we going to play another conference committee role play game?
Oh, I think that could be real fun. Well, so that was sort of all the news that we have from this specific week. We've got that license lottery coming up. We've got that omnibus bill working its way through conference committee. And we got a lot of people that are hopeful and waiting for licensure, which I think is exciting.
Yeah. We've got a few more episodes before June 5th, so it'll be interesting to see what we learn between now and then.
Yeah. Do you think OCM specifically set the lottery for just like the days after we record our final episode of the season? Because normally I would say no, but there's been enough coincidences where they come out just after we record that. I don't know.
At a certain point, coincidences become data.
And we know that the communications guy over at the OCM, he's a fan of the show. So
Josh Collins.
yeah, shout out Josh. So it's possible. It's possible.
I'm at a loss for words. I just continue to smoke my home grow, enjoy my vaporizer, and I see a lot of THC beverages out in the marketplace. I'm not a huge consumer of them. I don't know. It's interesting. We have training wheels on right now, so it's not like we're at a loss for where to get cannabis products, whether it's Legacy or Kowalski's or, Lunds and Byerly's, wherever you want to
Well,
get
Lunds and Byerly's parking lot used to be my place back in the day. But
Ironic.
yeah.
Now you can go inside.
I know.
The old stomping ground.
Yep. Well, we're going to take a short break. When we get back, you got your conversation with Colin Kelley. Definitely one to stick around for.
Yeah, great conversation. Thanks to Colin for coming out, and we'll be right back.
Attention Northern Lights listeners. Whether you're growing cannabis indoors or outdoors, organically or hydroponically, Eco Garden Supply has the tools to help you succeed. From premium organic nutrients to advanced hydro systems, they've got everything you need to cultivate like a pro at home. Head to ecogardensupply.com now or visit them in person at 800 Transfer Road, Suite 3, St. Paul, Minnesota 55114 and elevate your cannabis. Eco Garden Supply, growing supplies for the serious grower. Ever felt like running a cannabis business means running in circles just to get basic banking? Union Bank and Trust gets it. They've been helping cannabis businesses for over 10 years, solving problems like securing accounts, managing cash flow, and navigating regulations. No more jumping through hoops, no more runarounds. Just straightforward banking solutions built on trust, integrity, and performance. Check out unionbankandtrust.com today. That's unionbankandtrust.com.
Did you know that 70% of businesses fail in the first 10 years? And the number one reason they fail is because they run out of cash. Hi, I'm Dave Woodbeck. I'm the managing partner of Dope CFO. At Dope CFO, we help cannabis business owners beat the odds by providing financial leadership. Yes, we handle bookkeeping, accounting, and taxes, just like any accountant. But as one CEO recently told me, the last thing I need is another accountant. I need a partner who can help me achieve financial success. So take the first step towards financial success. Scan the QR code now to start your free self-assessment.
Today we're here with Colin Kelley. Colin, great to have you back on the show. Thanks for being here again.
Excited to be back.
It is May 2025. We're about a month out from the lottery, and that's super exciting. We've got a great episode that we've been sharing today with Tanner and Jordan here. But before we jump into it, give us a little bit of background. You've been on the show before.
Yeah.
Talk about your path into the cannabis industry, maybe at a high level, as well as, Leafline, maybe touch on it briefly, and
Sure.
then a little bit about Merida Capital and, what experiences have most significantly shaped your perspective that you bring to the Minnesota industry.
Okay. Yeah. I'd love to.
No rush. We're
No
here
rush,
for a
yeah,
while.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I've been in the cannabis industry. I found my way in about 2014, through doing some application work in the initial medical licensing.
Sure.
Right. And then took a role, was the first full-time employee at Leafline.
Yes.
When they won one of the 2 medical licenses,
Mm-hmm.
and was able to be part of building out
Right.
the cultivation and the manufacturing and the processing, and as well as all the dispensaries,
Yeah.
and also really building out the program. Right. There weren't
Sure.
a lot of great examples of medical, and especially restrictive extract only medical programs, pharmacist led,
Right.
in the country.
A program to me is essentially like there's multiple components to the overall
Yeah.
offering.
Yeah. It's, I think, and you could see that in the regulations, and I think the tension that the regulations have created over the last several years.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Just, I think, you write laws, you write regulations, and then you try to, live within that ecosystem that's created for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big learning,
Yeah.
in the sense that like the laws and the regulations weren't perfect, because,
Right.
they did the best they could, but they weren't perfect.
And they were limited from the onset.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think learning how to live and grow and survive in that, and then you start layering in, right? Like, okay, so how do you cultivate? What products are we going to choose? How are we going to carry them? How are we, and then pharmacists and dosing protocols, and then testing regulations, and then working with the testing labs, and then working with the state on requirements for testing labs, and rewriting some of that.
Sure.
You know.
When you could, but it's all part of the program.
Yeah.
And I believe it was episode 27 that you were on from
That's
season
right.
1.
That's right.
So if folks want to go back and really kind of hear some of those nuanced stories, like
Right. Yeah.
one of the things was you weren't allowed to run out of product.
Yeah.
So you had to make a conscious choice from the beginning of what you could produce that you would never run out of. And
Right.
and then you to jump ahead a little bit, the stigma, I say stigma, but like the riff or the reputation that the medical program has to non-medical patients and the greater Minnesota cannabis community, much was decided before you were born. Much was decided once you got introduced to the opportunity given.
Right.
And we're seeing it now with what the legislature enacted in a law,
Great example.
and then how it's being implemented.
Mhm.
Those being two different things. I was listening to an NPR podcast, Politics Friday podcast this morning, and they clipped Zach Stevenson, Representative Stevenson, answering the question of how long is it going to take for us to get online?
Mm-hmm.
And this was right after it passed, so 2 years ago or so. And he's like, "Well, I think it's going to be months, not years." And
72 months. Yeah,
I suppose a very politically correct answer. Now, it gets handed off, and then you have to figure out how to create the how to maximize or create something out of the opportunity. So I like how you mentioned program. It reminds me of how much work there is still to do if you're a social equity applicant or a pre-approved applicant and you're about to turn on.
Right.
You can't just unlock the door and say, "Oh, I'm a dispensary." There's so much more that goes into it.
Yeah, there's so much more, and I think that's a good, that's really good to keep in mind. And a lot of folks need to kind of keep that in mind as they're working here. And I certainly thought that Minnesota would move faster from medical to adult use, and then even from medical, from adult use to implementation.
I think
here we are,
COVID threw a couple years onto it.
I'm sure.
Given the anticipation at the end of 2019 going into 2020 where there was a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 years later.
Right.
So I mean, it's easier to be empathetic after the fact. In the moment when I first came across you online, I'm thinking, who's this guy? What's he doing? Is he still, when did you end up leaving Leafline? I'm trying to think timeline wise.
So I left my day-to-day role at Leafline in probably 2017.
Okay. Yeah.
So about 2017. And then I actually went to Merida Capital as it was being founded.
Okay.
So Merida Capital is a private equity fund.
Okay.
They have 4 funds now. And they only invest in the cannabis space, but they also do ancillary and plant touching
Okay.
assets.
Yeah.
And so I came on board, and then I moved to a board position at
Sure,
Leafline. So
sure.
I was staying on the board and kind of trying to move it forward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like let's finish the job.
Right.
Like let's continue to evolve
Mhm.
evolve this.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there still were insane access issues, right? Access to the medicine kind
Yes.
of issues
Yes.
that, really needed to be solved.
And I think, tell me this from your perspective, having years of experience. How can a board help an organization get out of looking forward, looking ahead? You have been an executive and operator, like a day-to-day operator.
Yeah.
To then move to a board, to have to be consistent with the vision or to be up to speed with the vision. How can a board help an organization look further ahead and try to get the obstacles out of the way so that the day-to-day organization can move forward? Is that a role that the board plays to any degree?
They really should, and especially in cannabis.
Yeah.
So with Merida, I've been on the operating side, so less finance and more and deal making and more like operations.
Yes.
So I'm working, usually hiring the local team that's running the business in whatever state it is.
Okay.
And we're talking it's like 100-something licenses across almost a dozen markets now
Right.
that I've been involved with standing up and operating. So you have to hire them, you have to train them, get everybody going. Here are the metrics. Here's the tech stack. Here's the let's get everything ordered and built, and real estate and construction,
Right.
and then marketing plans and the whole deal.
Yeah.
And the board, and so I'll sit on a lot of those boards and also be in close contact with the executive team, as well as even just like the general managers at the dispensaries,
Sure.
and the purchasing manager, and the inventory manager, and these really key roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think in cannabis, board members should, or it's helpful for them to be more closely intertwined.
I think so too. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's collaborative in a way. And so I think a lot of boards, maybe in other industries, I've seen them, it's sort of like going to the principal's office, right?
Right.
Whereas, in cannabis, we all need that collaboration. It's just like, okay, let's just figure this shit out.
Yeah.
Right.
But with defined roles.
With those defined roles. And so part of it is defining the roles is to say, okay, sitting down, and we would sit down and with the whole team, but then also within individual pieces, right? And so we're looking at okay, where do we want to put our next 4 dispensaries? And what does the real estate look like, and the local zoning look like, and who has relationships where?
Yes. Strategy.
Those types of strategy decisions, like how important is the drive-through window? How
Sure.
important is different little pieces there,
Sure.
right?
I love that as
Yeah.
just using the drive-through window, because it's a light example of,
Yeah.
hey, looking ahead, we're going to open 5 dispensaries this year or in the next 18 months. How can we look at real estate in order to maximize the opportunity to have drive-through, given convenience is such a factor in our life in
Right.
2025?
Right.
Yeah.
And COVID really pushed, the curbside pickup. I don't think my wife has been inside of a Target for a long time.
Good
right?
app.
Because you don't need to. Anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's slick.
It's amazing. So, and then looking at, say, you're going to place something and look at your product mix. So your product mix, let's say you're vape heavy,
Mm-hmm.
you actually you don't need as big of a vault, because you think about what products take up what amount of space. Like an eighth takes up way more space than a half-gram vape cart
Okay.
in the packaging, right?
Well, and you mentioned vault. So for those that are maybe new to this above ground adult use recreational industry,
Mhm.
why would a dispensary need a vault?
Well, because you can't open without one. That's another thing for like some new or to be licensed folks as well, right? They're just sets of regulations, and we may agree or disagree, or complain about, publicly or quietly about a lot of the different components of it.
Right.
And they're kind of like where we have to play.
Yep.
So we can complain about them, and then we're either like just don't do anything and go back to our home grow, or like we complain about them and then just and then go do the thing, right?
Yeah.
And you go do the thing. And so one of the things is, like dispensaries are going to deal with are pretty insane requirements for like, cameras and access, like the little card readers on the doors and things like that. The point of sale systems and the barcode scanners and printers for like metric and the packages and everything. And that everything has to sit in this like, vault that would make, a bank look like, like a play school kitchen, it's like no big deal. Right? It's the vaults are these heavy duty spaces. And then of course each state has different regulations on what constitutes a vault,
And I've heard in the past, like having to take down all the product off the shelf in the store every night, kind of like putting the toys to bed before you leave, and then taking them out the next morning, putting all the products back. And you just don't see that at a liquor store.
No, you don't. And that's why, like, having, a lot of product they're like dummy, like the.
Sure. Like that.
Like,
That's
like this stuff.
Yeah.
In a lot of dispensaries, when it's out on shelves and stuff, would just be filled with sand.
Okay.
Actually. Like,
What is that, Steve?
Oh, you're talking about the limited edition Grove Bag collab that they did with the Minnesota Cannabis College.
That is a sick bag.
There's only like 1,000 of those.
it is really beautiful.
You should definitely go to the Minnesota Cannabis College website and buy one for $4.20, limited time offer.
Insert shameless plug horn now.
Yeah, just run that as an ad within this interview.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Should we turn the? Should we just like?
I'm gonna come up with my own jingle too. It'll be like 3 seconds right after you finish. It's like, Grove bags gonna be in your bag.
Yeah, home grow. No better collab.
I like that. Yeah.
Sorry to distract.
No, it's good. But so that's why like a lot of when you have the smell jars in dispensaries or like the little bud bar jars, so you can see the bud and smell them.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the ass to have it, right? Because you have to have like complete, SOP procedures, right, written for like getting them out of the vault and putting them in, and then because you're typically getting the samples, and the regulations tell you like what type of samples you can get. So sometimes you're even just like having to like rip open an eighth and like take one bud out of it, but then you have to destroy the rest of the stuff in the eighth bag, and you have to document it all under the camera and write it down, and there's like a logbook. And I'm like, all this so someone can smell it. And then what we found in some markets, like Missouri's a great example, we found this. People loved it. They go in, they smell. And then the second time in the store, they never go back. They just go back to the counter and they're like, oh yeah, give me some of this and some of this. And then what's new? Oh yeah, I'll take a gram of that too, because I want to try it.
They ring the doorbell once, and then after that, they realize the door's unlocked. They just walk into their friend's house.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. That's funny. It's trust. Okay, so it smelled good once. I keep talking on these calls that I have. It's like, potential client calls or partnership calls. It's like, you have to acknowledge the element of human nature.
Yeah.
And you can't go upstream and expect to get to where you want to go. Like you just kind of have to go with the flow and like plan for the human element of whatever you're doing.
Right.
Nothing drives sales like experience.
Yes, and trust. And once they've had that trustful experience, they're sold.
Yeah.
Or willing to come back.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why, authenticity in brands like goes so far.
Sure.
Because like authenticity builds that trust.
Yeah.
Without, having to meet in person. If someone is like authentic or a brand is authentic, you're like, oh, I get it. I get them. I trust them more.
That's a good point. Like, yeah. So what are you doing now? Because I've got so many ideas I want to talk to you about.
I love it. So I'm still, I'm still working with Merida. We're standing up some more markets. I have a vertical license in New York that I'm working on, and a vertical one in Connecticut that I'm working on. Both with some local partners in both those markets.
Sure.
we have things operating in some other states that have opened up. So I've just kind of like getting to enjoy the team there, stretching their legs and
Yeah.
running
And
with
you're
them.
observing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And staying in touch with them, and also like getting the learnings from them. Right. So is there, what's working, what's not working, where do markets shift and trend as we see,
Okay.
supply and demand and price compression and, everything
Yes.
else,
Yeah.
and different levels of parity, right? And what's
Yeah.
happening in the market. Oh, okay. That is no ROI on that anymore, but there was.
There
Right?
was.
Or what it is,
Sure.
whatever it is.
I don't want to jump too far ahead, but we're here today with Colin Kelley, and you've been a part of maybe 100 different licenses. You've seen 14 states or 29 states. It's a lot.
A lot. Yeah.
And like my large question, and I don't want to be a downer here, but like, is there a way to make money in this industry, given all of the regs, rules?
Yeah.
There is.
There is. And it's not instantaneous. It's not guaranteed. And it's oftentimes not, it's not definitely not the lottery ticket that a lot of us were sold on, for sure.
Mhm.
Right. Like the green rush is quite frankly hilarious, and painful. It's like cry, laugh, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is possible. And we have to work at it.
Mhm.
And I will 100% go back to some level of collaboration is needed, because like, and I often say this too, it's like we all do better when we all do better.
Sure.
You know?
Paul
And so,
Wellstone. Yeah.
If we're trying to, take from other people in the industry, right? That zero sum kind of game is really, really, really not helpful.
Sure. The
not-
crabs in the bucket
Right.
mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people kind of, I've spent a lot of time zooming in and zooming out.
Sure. Love
right?
that. Yeah.
So national, state, but down into like what SKUs are selling in this dispensary in this, market. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I think a lot of people get lost in one perspective or the other. So they're looking at the larger market and they're saying like, why isn't this one dispensary over here performing, or this, why is nobody buying my fire cultive product?
Yeah.
And it may be really great product, but no one's, and they're like, I don't understand why. Or they're, producing something that may be amazing and wondering, why is this, or like, why, hemp is bad, right? Or intoxicating hemp is bad, or this, or, the, MSOs suck, illicit market, this, or, and, I think being able to zoom way the fuck out and say, like, it's all the same industry.
Mm-hmm.
And there are like parts of it that are great and some of it that's not as great. And like, it's definitely a bell curve distribution, but, right? And like, the traditional market and the regulated market, of which there are a lot of different types of players in the regulated market.
Mm-hmm.
The traditional market, the regulated market, and even like intoxicating hemp, or however you want to call it, right? Hemp derived.
I feel like the
cannabis.
intoxicating hemp is more of a national term. We have such a kind relationship with intoxicating hemp, as it's referred to here today.
I love it. Yeah.
Because we're in Minnesota. We're in St. Paul, Minnesota right now. And we had Corey Lake on the show not too long ago, and he was talking about how insurance companies are looking to him, how folks from across the country are reaching out saying, what's going on here? How does it work? How is it? How has it been happening? How did you observe that in the last 3 years, with having so much adult use, recreational cannabis experience, to see a new opportunity, to see the PG-13 movie market pop up when everything was R-rated or NC-17?
So to me, I've always seen the for regulated cannabis companies, and they're essentially transitioning consumers from the illicit market or the legacy market to the regulated market, and oftentimes not fully like
100%.
transitioning them,
100%.
right? They're still purchasing in both areas.
Yeah.
And that's where in some markets I've actually had great success, where my regulated companies will then sponsor like the home growers, like, get-togethers, right? Where they're coming together and they're like swapping, strains and seeds and cuts and like talking about their success and this and that. And then I'll go there and I'll give them, here's 15% off at my dispensary. Like, come on in, check it out. And they're phenomenal customers. And there's,
because they're users.
They consume. They
Hobbyists.
love the plant,
Mm-hmm.
right? They love the plant. They're consumers. They're advocates for it. And there's no reason that, we can't both exist. Right.
Yeah. No,
and so I've seen like hemp in a way, coming from that perspective. To me, hemp then wasn't quite so scary. Right. So if my job as a regulated market, owner or operator
Mm-hmm.
is to convert legacy folks or bring them over and say, hey, come also buy from me. Right.
Right.
It can also be really hard to find legacy market folks because we've been conditioned over decades to not be visible
Underground.
or accessible, right? You're underground.
In basements.
In the basements.
In
And so
warehouses.
now that they're able to go to like cool shops like this and actually buy, like Dabbler Depot or wherever,
Right.
and like actually just buy it, I'm like, oh good, so now I know where they are, right? And so you can reach people more easily.
Mm-hmm.
And like, again, like welcome them in. And then when you have a state like Minnesota where, there are some more common sense regulations here than there are in a lot of other places
Mm-hmm.
for hemp, where we're like, okay, we want it to be tested, and retailers should be registered, and things like that.
Yeah.
Then it allows them to coexist in a much more happy and supportive way for both groups.
Spectrum based.
Because then I get a lot of, in other markets, I see people and they're like, oh, hemp is terrible because they're not regulated and they get to cut all these corners and I have to go through all these regulations and it's terrible.
Like the
Well,
Illinois
yeah,
market was
yeah.
unfortunate timing
Yeah, it's too bad.
amongst everything, right? To see the rec shops coming online right around the time that HD9 was bubbling.
Yeah.
I want to like leverage your experience from
Sure.
all these states and license types and things like that. Question around the Minnesota market.
Mhm.
Safely speaking, there's like 12 license types.
Yeah.
So let's say a dozen license types plus the hemp-derived license that's going to be required, come
Right,
fall.
Right.
So what parallels can you derive from how Minnesota has set up, and how do you see these different license types like playing together when inevitably, as you're in business, cannabis or not, you strive to be vertically integrated?
Mm-hmm.
So when you have multiple different license types, how do you see, and you can maybe even touch on tribal market,
sure.
tribal
Yeah.
segment versus traditional market or social equity market. Like, do you see collaboration taking place? And if yay or nay, like how can we encourage more collaboration, especially from my perspective?
Yeah. That's a good question.
There's
like that.
so many. I mean, so speaking with the lottery, right? Let's
Sure.
go chronological. So there's the manufacturing license is
Mhm.
going to be coming, the meso license, lottery is coming,
Yep.
and then the cultivation
Right.
license is coming.
And then some retail, I think, too.
Social
for
equity,
SEA.
SEA
social
retail,
equity.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're spot on.
And then, the micros are happening right now.
There's some
which-
pre-approval, like
some
200.
pre-approvals that are out, and then, the other ones are going to start flowing, right? Like
Yeah.
the rest of them, I'm sure, as things start to,
Hundreds of license types, a good chunk of, vertically integrated license, like 50 mesos, I believe, out of 95. There's
at least
something like
yeah.
that. So all of a sudden you're going to start seeing some folks that are great. I'm going to start moving in my vertical way.
Mhm.
But some
Mhm.
folks are going to need to reach out and say, hey, I need product, or hey,
Yep.
how can I get my doors open faster? Because if you open with less product than we have on this shelf, like how might that affect the brand perception?
You got some problems. I mean, like, you should never be in a situation where someone walks out of your dispensary walks out without buying something.
Sure.
Right? Like,
right.
And that's one of the advantages, I think, of regulated cannabis license, like a legal dispensary versus a traditional market provider,
Yeah.
so
yeah.
to speak, right? Your plug, where like there's the there's safety and accessibility, and price is always a concern, but the traditional market's almost always going to win on price.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is selection, right? So like
Right.
a
Breadth.
lot of breadth of selection. So you want 30 different strains and a bunch of different, how many different, you're going to have 10 different distillate vapes, and then you're going to have this many, all your other, like the concentrates, and there's so many,
The variety.
the variety of products,
Mhm.
and it is necessary, right?
You go to
draw.
the grocery store, you don't just see like one
Right.
ketchup
Yeah.
bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like
It's-
I grew up we went grocery shopping. My dad was a veteran, and like we used to go grocery shopping at once a month at the commissary on the military base.
Oh, wow.
But it was really great, cheap prices, no tax, and like they had like 2 brands for like everything, and I always felt like I was getting shorted because it was never the cool brand either.
Okay.
So I'm like eating my lunch, like trying to hide the label, so
right.
the off brand, like
Yeah.
fruit snacks.
Right. Controlled market.
Yeah.
Is it Green Goods? Is it Leafline?
Oh yeah. Oh gee, I don't know.
Neither are cool.
Ooh.
Oh no.
Damn it.
But it's medicine.
But it's medicine, It's
Yeah.
like we need it.
No, it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So to answer your initial question, which I
Right.
think is so important, there will be collaboration, and there needs to be a lot of it.
Okay.
Like people really, really, really need to work together. It's especially like there's going to be so many micros.
Yes.
And when you have these verticals, whether it's like a big vertical like a mezzo or, and I know plenty of people who applied for mezzos who are not like these big out of state
True.
behemoths. There are some homegrown
Yeah.
folks that applied for mezzos that will hopefully get them.
Yeah.
And like doing every piece of the vertical, and that's something I've learned at Leafline and in many other states as well.
Right.
Like they're all very different types of activities. And so it's almost impossible to be really good at all of them.
No.
Right?
Right.
You can't. And so there are advantages to being vertically integrated. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And also like one thing that I've learned, like a product mix in a dispensary, especially a vertically integrated dispensary, when you start to get over, say, 30% of the products being your own products or
Okay.
brands, it starts to suffer. Your sales start to suffer.
Interesting.
And like typically I've seen a lot of people that will open and they'll do it in the inverse, right? They say, 70% of our products are going to be ours. We're going to get 60% margins on them, not 40.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be great. Everyone loves my products. And they have different brands, maybe like
Sure.
not just their one house brand, but a couple.
Yep.
And it's just like this, they starve out, folks.
I wonder what the aspect from the consumer side is. So one, we've acknowledged that variety makes us happy. Like the grocery store analogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clearly, if you could walk into the grocery store, they seem to think that more is better.
Right.
For more choice, more
In a way,
variety.
yeah.
Then you get into the shelf and the priorities of things like that.
Mhm.
So I like what you're saying. So if I've got Steve's dispensary and I've got 30% that are Steve's homemade products.
Yeah.
But you're saying the data shows that it's better to have a mix of at least 70% of products
Other-
that aren't necessarily
people's.
vertically integrated.
Right.
So you may have your selects line
Mm-hmm.
and that, it should be differentiated. Maybe it's loaded up with lots of cannabinoids or whatever you
Right.
might do to stand out. But then having to bring it back to collaboration, having a mix of 70% of other people
Yeah.
that are aligned in some way with your brand.
Right.
Your store.
And even if you, let's say you, Steve, have multiple brands that you produce, right?
Uh-huh.
So in order for them to be any good or any worthwhile as like a brand,
Yeah.
right, they have to be authentic,
Yes.
And so if you are authentically like propping up those brands,
Yeah.
then they're all going to sound like here, not up here,
Believable.
but like in your gut,
Yeah.
they're going to sound very similar, even if they're different brands, because they're all
Okay.
coming from you or your organization.
Right.
And so if they are authentic, they're all going to sound the same, and they're maybe going to be
Oh.
differentiated on like
I see.
manufacturing process or price or something like that. Like,
Sure.
oh, this is our value brand, and
Right.
this is our, you know,
Makes sense.
and like there's not enough differentiation.
Mm-hmm. To warrant having 60% of it
Right.
take up your store.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The product doesn't fall far
Yeah.
from the owner.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
and they may love it, but they also want and
Cool.
and
Okay.
you know, other cool stuff. They're
I
like,
mean-
I love Stu's product. It's my favorite, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, but when I want to buy, you know, hash, like I want like, you know, I want Sam Milstein's hash, and then I
Mhm.
want like, you know, I want Tanner's like, you know, ice water or whatever. You know, like
Yeah.
I want like they just have the areas where they go.
Right.
You know.
So I've got a store, you know, and then you're a hash maker. What is the engagement, you know, from a contract standpoint? Is it
Mhm.
standard business? How do you take
Yeah.
how do you take first time founders or legacy folks coming above ground?
Sure.
Is it often cash on delivery? You know, paid. You know, how will this trade get started here?
And that's going to be a really interesting thing. I do see a lot of in a lot of markets, a lot of like deposit and then net, like whatever, maybe 15-day terms or something like that to
Okay.
start.
Yep.
And I think with I mean, I know we wanted the market to be more craft, but it's at least it's more craft focused than a lot of other markets.
Sure.
Which also means there's like a higher risk of default.
Right.
Just from like a cash flow management perspective,
Yep.
not through like a, you know, anyone trying to screw anyone over. Just like it's,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
all of a sudden this is due, and then, you know, you're shuffling around. Right?
Smaller
Like,
boats.
you know?
Yep.
So, you know, I probably would, and it's also tough when you know someone to call them and ask for them for your money.
Right.
Not so fun.
Well, and so you know, maybe that
So the cash, sometimes the cash on delivery might be a great place to start.
I see the opportunity here because you
You know.
want to have verified vendors. You know,
Yeah,
you want to have
yeah.
either vendors or accounts that you can trust.
Right.
But so much of Minnesota's industry has been with training wheels on.
Yeah.
So, you know, for folks that are already operating, this interview isn't necessarily going to be like, oh, you know, because they're already selling to
Yeah.
liquor stores. They're
Right.
dealing with
Right.
top 10's payment terms. You know, they're
Yeah.
whatever it might be. So I like the Minnesota I like the Minnesota market for understanding the perspective.
Yeah.
Training.
And there's something to be said for, you know, understanding the context that the other parties are operating under.
There we go.
So
There we go.
I do that a lot with, you know, in new markets. We might put a deposit down really early on a supply of flour.
Cool.
Because like it takes a long time, right? You're buying all these, like, you know, never mind the equipment and everything else, but you're buying, like, you have to buy the substrate, you know, you're doing cocoa or soil or whatever.
Yes.
And the nutrients and the this and the, you know, and you're paying your electricity bill for 12 weeks while you're,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
doing the thing. So
I
like,
love that. I love that. I can just think of it from how I've
Yeah.
operated because if you do want the pot of gold, you got to invest in the rain and the rainbow and
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
dirt that comes before the pot of gold.
So there's something to be said for, you know, if I want to sell that product in my dispensary, and I also want to guarantee that maybe I have something,
There we go.
I say, hey, can I do a supply agreement? And it's going to be not super binding, but it's going to say, you know, I'm going to pre-buy this, or I want to buy, you know, at X price.
Yeah.
And we don't know exactly how many pounds you're going to produce. So it's a little loose, right?
Okay.
Because I can't say like, oh, you must supply me with 2,000 pounds. Because
No.
what if their first harvest is 1,800?
Uh-huh.
You know, and or it's just,
Yeah.
but we can say, okay, I'm going to let's say I'm going to, you know, buy and I'm going to send you what is roughly 50%
Yes.
down.
Sure.
So you actually have money to operate,
Yes.
right? And now you will, and like,
And I'm securing
I'm
my place.
securing some supply,
Yes.
which is really great.
And I can build a campaign around that. I can at least start to
Mm-hmm.
manifest in my mind how I'm going to sell through.
Yeah.
I like that.
And you start to get these partnerships going, and then that way you're kind of getting down on paper too, and you're putting the cultivators in a place where they're saying, yes, like I am planning to sell at X price per pound,
Sure.
right? And
Right.
so you start to, there's like a pre-sort
Right.
that's happening for the folks that are, there are folks that'll say like, I'm going to pre-sell it like $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a pound. And there are providers in the state right now that are selling at exceptionally high prices.
Okay.
And when they're not the only ones selling,
Yeah. That'll change.
There's a memory, right? There's a memory in the place. And so people
there's
are
a
like,
sort feature in the spreadsheet.
In the spreadsheet, so they're like, okay. So when you're no longer the only person, that becomes a big thing. And I've seen that, the hand of the market come back and kind of smack them in other markets where they're like, oh yeah, you gouged me for 6 months.
Okay.
And now I'm not, now that there's more supply
Yeah.
than needed, you're off my purchase list.
I see. Well, it reminds me of a famous movie line, Jonah Hill, Superbad. They're outside in gym class, and he yells, "People don't forget."
Mm-hmm. Well, there's that, what is it, Almost Famous. Philip Seymour Hoffman is like, everybody hate you, the star of your school. And the kid's like, no, everybody hates me. He's like, it's okay. You meet them all on your great journey back to the middle. Shit.
But transitioning a little bit towards movies, I had no idea you were involved in this, but the shirt you have on here,
yeah.
Reefer Madness, the
Reefer
musical,
Madness. Yeah.
which is, I guess, not a movie, but a musical.
Right.
Take me through what it is, how you got involved, and
Sure.
where can people find more?
Sure. So, originally, Reefer Madness was a propaganda film from the 30s or 40s.
Yeah, 30s, Garrison Hearst.
Yeah.
William Randolph Hearst.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
He funded it. And there a whole bunch of stuff. And it is just so outlandishly absurd.
It is.
Right. I mean, and so there were the two gentlemen that wrote it, Dan Studney and Kevin Murphy, were at University of Wisconsin in Madison.
Okay.
And like a bunch of people used to watch the original propaganda film and get high and laugh at it because it was so dumb.
Sure.
Right. And
You're
stupid.
right.
So they're on a road trip from Madison to LA to like get into, the scene.
They were
right?
moving out to LA.
They're basically moving out to LA, and they'd done stuff and been part of stuff. But they were,
Okay.
they just, like, think of it as like these are like theater kids in the late 90s, but they're not kids. They were a little older.
Sure. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So they're headed out, and they're on this road trip listening to Frank Zappa, and they're like, oh my God, like we could write scenes around like of a satire of how absurd this is, and
Okay.
like just like campy, play it up, and like because it's so much bigger than like just cannabis. It's
Okay.
like propaganda is powerful shit,
Right.
and you can apply it to anything.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
Hearst did propaganda for Hitler.
Yeah,
In Germany.
they're
Yeah.
they can do it for anything,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
and which is very topical for today's
Absolutely.
world. You can make people believe anything.
The
right?
world is flat.
Yeah, right. Like, so, they had this really successful. They wrote it, and then they had a really successful theater run in like the early 2000s.
Okay.
Did a Showtime movie with the folks from the theater. So like Alan Cumming, Christian Campbell, and Kristen Bell.
Oh, wow.
They were, like
Yeah.
the three big ones in there. And Kristen actually signed the shirt.
So they did early aughts.
Early aughts theater, and then a Showtime movie that they won like a major award
Really?
for.
Yeah. Before you got involved.
Before I got involved.
Okay.
And then Kristen did a bunch of amazing projects after that, right? That we've seen her in movies and shows and stuff. And Christian did other projects as well.
Okay.
In film. But he always stayed really close to Reefer Madness.
Okay.
And so what ended up was through his continued use of it, he like has the trademark
Cool.
for the mark for it.
Wow.
And he's like, you know what? Like, and he very much like, and if you get to know him, he very much, believes in this, like the message that like, you can pollute people's minds and make them believe things and do things that they would not normally otherwise do.
Sure. Yeah.
And that we need to really be aware of this.
Yeah.
And cannabis is this perfect example,
Right.
of
Yeah.
it, and we all live it. And so he had come to me, a couple of years ago and said, hey, like, I think I want to do more with this Reefer Madness, thing. I want the brand to be out there and like in commerce kind of spreading this message. And that's like, you get it into people's, pocketbooks. And they start to see it in more places, right?
Right.
Like, so they'll be like, oh, that's Reefer Madness. And they might be talking about cannabis, and they might just be talking about a political figure, right? Or like some other thing, right?
Wow,
and
yeah.
like they're starting to recognize it and call it, like as a verb.
Yes.
Right?
Describing
Or like
describing propaganda, given, history repeats itself.
Yeah, it does. It does. So, he was like, hey, what do you think would be a good way to do this? And we had talked about it, and one way to do it is like you put it out as do a play, like revive the play in LA. And we just do like, let's do a month or two.
Yeah.
And like we'll get so many eyeballs on it that like earned media will be like, it'll kind of just jumpstart this thing.
Cool.
And it ended up going for like months. Months.
Last year?
Last summer. So it was like May to like October.
Wow.
And we had, there's there's a character, Jesus is one of the characters in it, and he tries to like convert Jimmy away from like the dangerous reefer, and Jimmy's like, I've got to do God now, like right. But we had like the Jesus character was one that we were able to actually like bring like guest actors in.
Okay.
So like people from like Grey's Anatomy, we had Jason Alexander come in. So if you can imagine like George Costanza as Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Like, and I mean, he crushed it.
That's wow.
And we had a great time, and they cleaned up. They had 14 nominations in like the LA Theater Awards, and won like, best production, best ensemble cast, best director, best like musical score. And it was just great fun. So we would go, and like Angelina Jolie started coming, and she came like 7 or 8 times.
Really? Did you get a chance to meet her?
I did. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Very good. She's very tall.
I could see that. Yeah. Powerful woman.
Yeah. She's totally badass.
I mean, I know you don't want to talk about yourself, but you played a role in helping get it produced, correct?
I did help.
Yeah.
I did help. I mean, good news, there are a lot of producers in anything. So, but I was able to kind of connect also like sponsorships. Like, let's loop this back to the industry. And, there are, folks in the cannabis industry that would support this. So we had an outdoor space that was sponsored by Blazy Susan.
Okay.
Right. And so they helped build like a whole, like basically like a bar and a restaurant and like smoking lounge area outside.
Yeah.
And like,
sweet.
had all kinds of other fun people kind of, and we were able to, work them into the theater experience, because the play happened like all around you.
Theater in the round.
Yeah. Wow. And even like in and amongst you. So like the dancers are like, flying over you, and
immersive.
Yeah. Super immersive.
Did it get filmed at all? Is there a recording of it?
There are some recordings. There's a good patron did a documentary on it.
Okay.
That's out there as well. And that's a killer one. And we have some more kind of coming up.
Sweet.
And it also will, it's going to hit some other big cities.
Okay.
I think in the next year or two.
Keep me posted.
Big
sweet.
Stuff. So it's really fun. Really, really fun.
Oh, that's exciting. Wow, what a cool opportunity for you to be a part of a production like that.
Yeah. I love it. It's like I don't often get to do cool things.
Well,
as my kids remind me.
Yeah. You mentioned being a father, being a family man, and how has cannabis, how will cannabis, how have you adjusted to being a father in relation to being in the cannabis industry? And as a new dad myself, I'm curious to hear kind of how cannabis helps you. Where do you stay away from? What have you learned being a cannabis user and being a dad? Yeah.
No, that's a great question. There's something that working in the cannabis industry and parenting kind of have in common is there's no one way to do it.
Sure.
Like I don't know what the hell I'm doing as a father. And there are oftentimes in the cannabis industry where like there's a lot of hypothesis testing. We'll call it that, right? So it's like I don't know exactly what I'm doing. Or like, I think I've seen this before, and we're going to try this. And then we're going to, I think we were talking about this during the break. Like, we're going to measure it really fast and see like, oh, did that work? Or like, oh, don't do that again. Okay, don't touch that. Don't touch that. Don't touch that.
Seriously, yeah.
And there are lots of things with like, your kids, my daughter or my son, and I'm like, okay, so are they hungry, or are they something else? Are they sick? Are they, or like, how do I address this?
Assessing
how do I
needs.
explain this?
Mhm.
So I think there's, each one kind of trains me for the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a way, and that oftentimes the payoff is like more long tail,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Like,
Wow. Set it and forget it.
bury
it and come back to it. It's a capsule piece.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Like I hope my kids turn out to be like just good human beings,
Right.
like kind, good human beings.
Do you think there's from an observation standpoint, do you think, they get to be 2 years old, they get to be 4 years old, they get to be 6 years old? Do you feel like you have indications along the way that provide you?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. And like each, they're growing so much physically and mentally and emotionally
At the
the same time.
Yeah.
So like each age presents its own new set of challenges to us parents.
Right.
And each age is like different expressions of, who they are as a person, and that who they are as a person is also like evolving.
Always.
Right?
Yeah.
Evolving. And I mean, hopefully us too, who we are as humans, are evolving.
Yeah.
If we're open to it.
Yeah.
They, in a sense, like in some ways, the kids they don't have a choice but to be open to it,
Mm-hmm.
for a while at least. So that's always interesting.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I hear you. The I think foundationally, like, it's important for us as parents to try to get as much sleep as possible.
Yeah.
Try to drink as much water as possible. Try to get some food in our system in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much coffee before food for me, because all of those things help just prepare you to be more agile and to be more adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look at how I can integrate cannabis. But I think it's short-sighted to use cannabis when you're as a crutch to not getting enough sleep, to not drinking enough water.
Right.
Because ultimately, I think as a cannabis user, when I use cannabis, if you're using it consciously, you're listening to say, oh, okay, this is helping me understand how my body really feels right now.
Yeah.
I'm more in tune with my body. And so as a cannabis user, not a heavy user, but as a regular user, I'm thinking about, man, I like using cannabis, but I should like getting sleep more. And subconscious.
There's that, right?
When I'm using, I think and constantly evaluating.
Yeah.
But understanding like cannabis is not a cure-all.
No, I think you really, really hit on it there, where, cannabis, it helps you create that homeostasis or that balance in your body. And so like maybe you're using some of it to help you sleep in a, non-habit forming kind of way, where you're just like, okay, I have some anxiety right now. I'm going to use this, or, and I see a lot of parents trend towards like low dose because they're able to, more precisely dose what they're doing in their day to day. I see that a lot, and it's helpful that we have so many options here in Minnesota too, to like, because it might not be a 10, a bong rip or a 10 milligram, even a 10 milligram, thing.
Is that
where
the
you're
most common gummy dose in rec stores?
10 and 5. 10 and 5. Low dose actually does not, in beverage and gummies, do not sell well in licensed stores.
Right.
And I think that's, with now, with the hemp market in Minnesota and having that as its own license type, I think that's actually good news for them, in the sense of like, if you want to stay in that, low dose market, that there will be space for you, because like the 3 milligram mints or 2 milligram mints and stuff like that are really horrible sellers in dispensaries, so to speak. And there are lots of folks that like, that's the dose to take when you're taking your kid to the park, or like one or two of those.
Right.
Cause like if they fall off the swing and you need to drive them to the hospital, like you can still go do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you need to like just snap to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're still, and you get to know personally, right? Like, where are my different thresholds?
Yeah, no
Right,
doubt.
for
No, I
this,
mean,
and-
you don't have, you don't have
you
to
know how it
nuance,
goes, right?
caveat the,
Yeah.
to our audience at least. And so what I'm thinking about is like, okay, so I understand the 50 milligrams that I can get here at the Dabbler Depot Seed and Sesh. What are the largest edible dosage sizes that you've seen at dispos across America?
I mean, I've seen it like per piece.
Yeah,
let's
or
say,
sure.
or per package. I mean, your traditional is 10 milligrams per piece, 100 milligrams per package.
And so my hot take here is, as much as people were shitting on the low dose market or calling it like whatever they wanted to call it, it's not that much different than a dispensary gummy.
Yeah. And in a lot of states, they're legally capped at 100 milligrams per package and 10 milligrams per dose.
That's what I thought. Is that what Colorado is, or states like Colorado?
Yeah, and I know Michigan had it,
Okay.
at least for adult use, I think medical. And that's where like some states, it was an advantage to do medical, have a medical card, because you could like
extra strength.
You're limited, plus you get extra strength stuff. And
okay.
And in the sense that like, you might need it actually.
Yeah, for medicinal reasons.
Some cases,
Mm-hmm.
and some. So yeah, that's but I've seen some other states where they don't have those restrictions on the dosage, where you might have a 25 or 50 milligram or even more, right? Like I've seen like hundreds and 500 and whatever, like of these things.
Okay, so there are some states that you might be able to sell a 500 milligram package.
Yeah, or like a 50 milligram gummies with like 10 of them or more.
Yeah,
right.
No, that's what I'm saying.
And for the pack and they sell, and I think, but they also sell to it's a subset of the total purchasing population.
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right.
We call him Tanner.
Yeah. we found that in some of our Missouri dispensaries. We tried they had some high dose edibles. Unfortunately, one of the names of them was like Buffalo Balls, which was probably not a great marketing choice, but whatever. But then there were some other ones that had normal names. And so the high dose and the low dose didn't sell well. They really, really didn't sell well, and everyone kind of trended towards that middle.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, this makes sense. And then what that turned into was a conversation with the producers.
Yeah. Where
we said, you need to lower your minimum order quantity, your case size.
Yeah.
On these, or we have to stop carrying it.
You're
right.
You're the equivalent of like a 10 or 11 or 12% beer.
Yeah.
There's just not as many folks that want to buy that type of imperial.
Yeah. Yeah.
IPA.
Right? Like, and and then the stores themselves, you can have a profitable retail store or dispensary that is having trouble with cash flow and say like making payroll, because most of their assets are sitting in inventory.
And then you're biting the hand that feeds by having high minimums for ordering, and then they're sitting on a bunch of product that they can't move quickly, given that the customer base is just niche.
Yeah.
So okay, I guess I'll try to get you on one hot take here before we wrap up. Minnesota has had, true or false, Minnesota has had dispensaries for years.
Pass.
Yes. No, that's not a good way to ask it. Folks there's operators right now that are calling themselves dispensaries, and they're not actually selling adult use recreational products. Do you think they should be able to get that off? Or I take a more I like to call them hemp shops or CBD stores, given that we're not going to call them CBG stores or CBN stores, and you can't really call them THC stores. I don't know if it's not like a gotcha here, but it is a little confusing when folks are like, yeah, I see dispensaries all over the place. It's like, okay, I guess they're dispensaries because given the product that they can sell currently, but then what do those stores become once dispensaries are here?
Yeah, I think there's, so personally, I don't call them dispensaries. I kind of don't care if other people do.
Yeah.
And especially even like the owners of them, if they're like, oh, I own a dispensary. I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, I love that you have a, whatever, like, hemp or,
You have a
low dose
store.
store. I love that. I love that it's there. I love that you're in business. I want you to stay in business.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I wouldn't call it that, but whatever. I get it. And also like people tend to, they're like, if I want to buy cannabis products, I want to go to a dispensary. So there may be certain, consumer populations of consumers
Yes.
that like need it to be called that.
Yes.
In order for, so I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And like when adult use, like let's say they get that adult use license and then they switch over to like selling all the products, right?
Right.
They're gonna have an issue with how are they gonna let people know that they're different now? Because if they were a dispensary before and now they're a dispensary now,
Yeah.
right? Like it's like, what are you gonna tell them?
And
like, we have the good shit. Like what do you say?
I think though, and some folks may think differently, but I believe that the success of the Minnesota hemp-derived low-dose market is strong enough that some folks won't leave.
Yeah.
And so the folks that are currently going to a dispensary are going to keep going to that dispensary as long as it stays in business, because to kind of put a bow on it, that 5 milligrams or that 50 milligrams per pack is enough for them.
It might work.
I think it's
That's
brilliant. I think it's brilliant that Minnesota figured that out.
I do. I really, really appreciate that. I love it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I'm cool just driving in the neighborhood at 20 miles an hour and, stopping at the 4-way stops.
Yeah.
And then there's some folks that are like, I got to get out of this neighborhood. I want to hop on a county road and then get on the highway. And I want, whether it's a 35 mile an hour speed limit or a 55 mile an hour speed
limit. The e-bike won't cut it,
Yeah. Yeah. Eventually some people are going to want to get out of that slow zone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Low dose. Low dose is cool. But I'm certainly excited for high dose and, unadulterated dose.
All of it.
And I'm excited to keep having these conversations with you.
For sure.
If folks want to find you, reach out to you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah. I'd say LinkedIn.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, Colin Kelley or C Kelley, I think is the handle.
Yeah. Oh, dope. Yeah. That's, we're connected there. Definitely a great place to find Colin. And, any last words as we wrap up here?
I would say, for folks that are expecting licenses, be patient, reach out to other folks, collaborate, see how you can work together. If you, and also be self-aware, like identify what your strengths are.
Mm-hmm.
And say like, oh, okay, like I really love cultivating and I'm really good at it.
Yeah.
And, this dispensing part or this sales part or this marketing part, I'm going to go find an expert in that area.
Yeah.
And go do business with them.
Right.
And we'll all be a lot more successful that way.
I love that. Yeah. We can't do it all without each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are going to be folks that storm the hill and try to climb it all by themselves, and some will succeed, but many will fail. And so I think it's important to have these conversations and to keep connecting, keep collaborating. And as we work our way towards summer, like keep in touch, share your progress, share your wins. And, the Facebook community in Minnesota there is a lot of things being shared online. It's not my favorite place to hang out. But I do see a lot of activity, especially with the micro applicants on the Minnesota Cannabis Facebook groups and things like that. But you can find Colin on LinkedIn. You can find the Minnesota Cannabis College on LinkedIn, and you can find me on LinkedIn. So it was great to see you, Colin. Happy to have you in the studio, and thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Attention all Minnesota cannabis lovers. Put down your joint, bong, vaporizer, or whatever else you're currently holding while you're listening to your favorite podcast, and mark your calendar for the second annual Doobie Dabbler Cannabis Festival, happening September 5th and 6th at Seavers Fall Festival Grounds in Shakopee. This 2-day festival is a cannabis lover's dream, featuring over 100 acres of vendors, artisans, industry pro seminars, live music, food trucks, and the wackiest and wildest activities your stoned imagination can come up with. Doobie Dabbler is the can't-miss cannabis party of the year.
Come join thousands of your newest buddies in celebration of the ever-growing Minnesota cannabis culture at Seavers Fall Festival Grounds in Shakopee, September 5th and 6th for the 2025 Doobie Dabbler. Tickets and more available at doobiedabbler.com. Doobie Dabbler, Minnesota's great green get-together. Must be 21 years of age or older to attend. Powered by the teams behind Beer Dabbler, Barris Joy, and Hunt Atkins. Ready to kick off your home grow? We've got the perfect hookup for you. MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. They've got everything from fast flowering strains to unique hybrids, all ready for growing in Minnesota. And guess what? Our listeners get an exclusive deal. Use the code NL10 for a 10% discount on your entire order. Don't miss out and get started with the best seeds. Start your growth strong with MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. Remember, NL10 for 10% off at MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. Grab your seeds today. All right, and we're back, guys. Final part of the episode, final part of the week for us. It is the high note. I'm excited for this. I'm excited to see what's happening here. Oh, all right. This is exciting. This is exciting. We're here for this. We're including all of this.
This is live.
This is live. This is how we do the episode.
This is live. If you can't see us right now, that's okay. Make sure you're still subscribed on Apple Podcast.
Yeah. And Spotify.
And Spotify Podcast.
Sometimes Apple Podcast doesn't notify me when we drop a new episode. So I've subscribed on both Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
And you should maybe
That
also
way,
look at
double notified.
If you have YouTube, you can subscribe on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, and get
as well.
notified that way as well.
Because like Google Play Store is a nice place that you can find the Northern Lights podcast through the Google Play audio app.
We need like an app like Woof. Shout out to the office days. Where I need like every single one of my devices blowing up anytime there's a new Northern Lights podcast.
Yeah. Yes. Always. And once we hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, it's going to be going on.
I've become the guy at work that has two phones.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
One
because,
for the Doobie Dabbler?
Well, no, like one for Dabbler, one for Jordy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes I have to make them talk to each other, and I just feel like a weirdo. I'm like, this is the future the liberals want.
Now you know how my iPad feels.
That thing gets its steps in, huh?
It's off now. I don't get text messages to it. I got an update and now it doesn't take text message. So I don't know what happened.
Is that good for you?
It's fine.
I think
I still got AirDrop.
Yeah.
Is there a way I can turn text off on my phone?
So throw it into a lake.
Okay.
Or a river.
All right. High thought.
Yeah.
It's the end of the week.
Yeah.
What have you guys been thinking about? We've been doing dabs. We've been hanging out. What have you been chatting about to those around you?
I wanted to share something from my bachelor party
Okay.
as my high thought. I went to a meal called Sacrilicious. You can find them on Instagram. They're like a dabs forward, chef driven cannabis hospitality brand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't have any dabs necessarily at the dinner, but they're known for integrating dabs into like adult use markets and having like these dinners.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to shout out Eat Sacrilicious and their 7-course cannabis infused meal that went down last Saturday.
Yeah, we were sort of talking about that offline a little bit. Talk about some of the things that like were part of this meal, because this wasn't just like, we had salad and then we had burgers and then there was like, cake from Costco at the end. What kind of stuff were you having?
We got to the house and we were told we could walk around and go upstairs, and we got to smoke joints on top of the highest point in Minneapolis. It was an incredible experience. Thank you so much to the Levine family. And we were able to meet each other. My brother was there, his friend from high school who he hadn't seen, Kirby Puckett Jr.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, was sitting across from me at the dinner. He's in the cannabis industry. He's interested in getting more involved in the Minnesota industry. Mm-hmm. Really cool guy. He was there with his wife. It was phenomenal. It was so fun to talk cannabis with Kirby Puckett, and I think he'd be great on the show too. It'd be fun to I don't know.
Yeah.
It was so fun to be like, oh, wow, there's famous people in the cannabis industry.
Oh, yeah. It's no longer just sort of the ragtag group of us all looking around at each other being like, this is going to be big someday, right? It's about people saying, this is going to be big real soon.
Yeah, we had expert chefs, Minneapolis chefs that have been around, open restaurants, and they cooked burrata, a scallop, a toast, and toast was that would have been the one that you would have loved the most.
Mm-hmm.
It included ramps, porcini, and asparagus.
Mm.
And they infused the fats within the mushrooms. And so the mushroom...
Very cool.
Yes. They infused through either fats or sugars. Chef David... yeah, like I said, it's Eat Sacrilicious. That's Eat Sacrilicious. Count the vowels. That is just mostly vowels.
I dig that, though. That's so cool.
It was cool. Also, the latest issue of Bloom dropped, and they gave Cannon Connect a spot in the ad. So
cool.
they had a little ad spot for us in there. So
Shout out Bloom. It's always cool seeing, cannabis media continue to expand in our state and everywhere.
hospitality and media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My turn?
Yeah, what do you got, Tanner?
Oh, sheesh. All right, guys. So I had a news article pop up on my Reddit feed earlier this week that sort of caught my attention. And it was that they've discovered a berry in parts of Africa that produces CBD within the berry itself. Now, super low quantities. But it's really interesting to see a non-cannabis plant producing cannabinoids. Wow. Now, lots of things produce cannabinoids. They're called endocannabinoids generally because it's from the inside of the body. But these cannabinoids are sort of existing out in the world. And it's cool that there are more things bringing cannabinoids into this world than just cannabis plants itself. But it sort of got me thinking.
Did it cross-pollinate it?
I'm trying to think of the ecology and like what happened.
Oh, I have no idea.
I
This is where
know.
we're way outside of my knowledge.
yeah.
And I did the classic Reddit thing where I didn't even read the article. I just read the headline. But what it got me thinking about, it's where all the good information is. What food
Yeah.
do you guys think would cause like the most chaos?
To have CBD.
All of a sudden it started producing THC. Like I was thinking about like if wheat, like grains, all of a sudden
Isn't that the whole like Last of Us cordyceps?
THC everywhere. And
That's it.
Yeah, you guys don't have to answer that. But that was sort of my high thought of I was sitting to myself, getting pretty stoned, thinking to myself like, wow, imagine if just like raspberries had weed in them. And then just like any food you ate that had raspberries in it was going to be infused with THC. And like, maybe I wouldn't hate that because like I could save that for like desserts or like whatever. And, but
My
Man, I
preferred
don't know.
would be apple trees.
okay.
Apple trees came through my head, but like what would wreak the most havoc?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the population that already wreaks the most havoc on society, and that's a strong-willed Karen. So now I'm thinking like Diet Dr. Peppers, Diet Coke, like
If all of a sudden like the coca plants.
yeah, something to do with where the Karens are getting fueled up. That could be pretty disastrous. Yeah.
I think it could be a cool world. all right. Jordan, what was your high note for the week?
Would it be 10 milligrams? How, would it just be always 10 milligrams?
I think it would just be, it depends how much of that food you're adding,
If
It's
we're
like-
going to go the Jordan route, which Diet Dr. Pepper doesn't grow on trees, I would say
What?
gasoline. What if gasoline had THC?
Are we talking about like who's drinking? Are we doing like the 5 finger? Like if you could make 5 liquids come out of your hand at one point, mine would be like.
I've never played this game.
Oh, it's a good get to know somebody question. It's if you could make an unlimited amount of 5 different liquids be at your disposal through one of your 5 fingers on one hand,
This is a beverage industry game.
what would they be?
Oh. With a mistake in the wood shop, I could have blood flowing out of at least one finger.
And then I'd have water coming out of my pinky, just like
Yeah.
a nice...
Yeah, no, water and gasoline absolutely. Or well, actually, crude oil. Crude oil.
Crude oil.
Does that count?
Middle finger.
Just
but I would,
apple
need,
juice.
I would need to find a middleman to process the crude. I'll just go gasoline. Yeah, but also think about the money to be made.
Because you could get it at the pump. 10 mil. It's THC
So,
at the pump.
anyways, then the next one would be: does Go-Gurt count as a liquid?
Yes.
Okay, great. Then Next, it would be a raspberry Go-Gurt.
Do you know Go-Gurt's not vegetarian?
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. It doesn't matter. I just like throwing it out there.
Wow.
Yeah, party kill. Sorry, that was such a bad. Jordan, what else would you have? What would you come out of your middle finger?
It's a loaded question.
Chocolate milk?
It's funny because at one point in the history of my answers of this question, chocolate milk was in the top 5.
Okay, all right.
Nothing beats a good chalky milky, you know?
I drank espresso on ice today.
That's basically a chalky milky.
Good weather.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a true time of summer. You know, it's now we can enjoy the cold beverages without seeming like a weirdo.
My backyard is triangulated by 3 different species of lilac tree. And so basically every single time I walk out into my backyard, I am slapped in the face by the greatest fragrance you could ever imagine. So it's my high note is just getting lilac in stereo any single time I'm within 75 feet of my own backyard. It's just I love this time of year. My high note is like, okay, the blooms are happening. I think we've already discussed this. I feel invigorated by this time of year.
More bloom.
More bloom.
Yeah. The trees are opening up is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, like you look outside and you're like, whoa, they're budding.
It just, the world is slowly getting its color back, and it's, it just makes me feel invigorated and refreshed. And lilac is a very, very literal representation for me of like, it's my favorite time of year.
You got it in your backyard.
It's right there.
That's nice.
I think I might buy a lemon tree. Although you have to take it inside in the winter, and so that's sort of a... We'll come back to
I
that
like
later.
it. I like it. I support that venture. If you can find one.
I don't... Yeah.
They're tough. They're fickle.
They are. But food is fickle. You know, it's not easy growing food.
I wish there was like a lemon tree college in Minnesota that I could go to that would teach me how to grow lemon trees or like open a lemon tree
And like
cultivation business.
Hypothetically had a website, it would be like www.lemontreecollege.
No, it would be MinnesotaLemonTreeCollege.org.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We still have the .com. They would still have the .com domain, but it doesn't really go to the .org one. All right, that feels like a good place to leave it. Guys, thank you so much for another episode 31.
Yes.
Hey, I'm 31.
Wow, this Jordan,
Yes,
this episode is for you.
It's funny though, because by the time this episode comes out, I'll be 1 week closer to being 32.
Wow, all right, that's exciting.
Yeah.
This is Jordan's golden episode. Thanks everybody.
Yeah, find us on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and of course, all the social medias. But for now, we'll leave you there. Thanks for joining me. Have a good week. Northern Lights is a Minnesota Cannabis College production. This episode was produced by me, Tanner Barris, and by Steve Eigenman and Jordan With. Production assistance from Marcus Harkis, Shayna Payton, and John Barty. Video and audio recording at the Dabbler Depot studio by Jordan With. The information provided in this podcast does not, and is not intended to, constitute legal advice, but is instead for general information purposes only. No listener should act solely on the basis of information provided without first seeking advice from their own legal counsel. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Minnesota Cannabis College. Please listen responsibly.